Okay, welcome everyone to the September edition of the Passive House Alberta Coffee Talks. We're back from our summer break to learn more about Passive House and high performance buildings. My name is Frank Crawford. I'm the Education Committee Lead with Passive House Alberta. And today we will be hearing from Chelsah Thomas, who is the founder of Invinctus Energy Service, which is located in Red Deer, Alberta. She has a passion for sustainable construction, renewable energy. She founded her social enterprise in 2016, and her motivation is to help others build better, and it flows from her experience in constructing Central Alberta's first net zero passive house. She now serves as Western Canadian residential energy efficiency needs, or serves the Western Canadian residential energy needs, and recently won the Business of the Year for the Young Entrepreneur in Red Deer. And she'll be talking to us today about her experience in constructing the Thomas House project. So take it away, Chelsah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Frank. And just a side note, I did notice that there is a chat. So is that something we need to address prior to me getting going?
No, so I will, if you have any questions throughout her talk, you can put it into the chat and I will monitor them and bring them back up at the end. However, since there's not a ton of us, there'll probably just be time to ask the question in person at the end as well. But yeah, feel free to use the chat box, but I will monitor it. So you don't need to, Chelsah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. So yeah, as Frank mentioned, my name is Chelsah Thomas. I'm with Invinctus Energy Services, and I want to thank Passive House Alberta for hosting me for today's session. Frank, if you don't mind just muting your mic in the meantime, that would be awesome. We all have kids at home here, so it's totally okay. So I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I wanted to touch base first on some news related to why I'm passionate about building and retrofitting homes to higher performance. I, along with yourselves, in your own ways, are working toward adapting for and mitigating the effects of climate change through sustainable building. If you haven't already had a chance to review the IPCC 6th assessment report on climate change, I would encourage you guys to do so. In our region, we're projected to have large temperature increases compared to the global average, specifically in the winter, and will increase wintertime precipitation in the farther northern regions of Canada. The report implores policymakers to radically reduce greenhouse gas emissions in order to limit the effects of climate change, including more intense wildfires, heat waves, and droughts. In August, as I was preparing for this presentation, Red Deer actually was going through yet another heat wave, as you guys can remember. This summer. Edmonton and Calgary had already hit triple the normal amount of above 30 degrees Celsius days, which is typically recorded in a year. We suffocated in wildfire smoke from British Columbia's 300 wildfires at one time, coming just weeks after Lytton burned and as well the community of Montlake, BC. And I'm sure many of you know people who lived in BC who had to deal with the evacuations, or were personally affected by the lowered health conditions due to smoke. And specifically, I was one of them. I coughed for about 3 weeks after that big smoke went through. The lack of precipitation this year has been difficult to deal with. Over the summer, the prairies experienced worst drought conditions in Canadian history. Decimated crop production in many areas. As I personally have observed this year hiking around our own home, tree leaves were dropping green and crunchy. Our river was so low that it was filled with green grass and algae foam, and I've never seen it that low during the month of August. I noticed even that birds and bugs were visibly reduced. I don't mean to start this talk as one filled with doom and gloom, but I do want to evoke a sense of urgency in yourselves to move together as a community. I know during my regular work days, I get caught up in the flow of work, and sometimes I forget about why I'm in the field in the first place. But if we take some time to remind ourselves about the impact we can make each day, even small, to encourage others to build better, I know our collective contributions will make a noticeable effort. Greg Flato, senior researcher from Environment and Climate Change Canada and vice chair of IPCC group that authored the report recently said, from my perspective, that's kind of empowering in the sense that there's something we can do about it. It's not an inevitable consequence. So we have agency and we can act individually, we can act collectively. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my path, about what led me here today. Also share about my own project, the Thomas House, which is a demonstration house and a case study we conducted that merges theory with practice. I'll go over some of the lessons we learned from that experience, and lastly, answer any questions you might have. So myself, along with Chelsah Thomas, my partner, we founded Invinctus Energy Services in 2016 after I completed my master's in environmental management. The development of our company was based on the premise of the pillars of sustainability, whereby I wanted to create a company focused on energy efficiency and renewables, while also acting as a social enterprise to target energy literacy in my community. This is part of the reason why I'm here today, and why I like to engage in other organizations, individuals, and businesses in sharing what I know. After completing university, Jesse and I were looking to build our own house, but we couldn't find any other local consultants who were knowledgeable about passive houses or net zero homes. I now know that there is a great network of individuals who are capable and passionate about high performance buildings, both locally and across Alberta. However, without that network, I ended up taking my own training for Passive House Consulting through Passive House Canada and certifying as an energy advisor through Natural Resources Canada in order to initiate the process ourselves. We did find help along the way with consultants who assisted us with some of the technical details, and of course, sub-trades who helped us with parts of the construction. You can see some of these services we provide to homeowners and home builders across Western Canada. We also provide energy audits for homeowners through the federal Greener Homes program. And our company has completed 5 net zero home projects with another couple in the works here this next year. So although homes today are constructed much more efficiently than they previously were, new actions developed by the Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth and Climate Change include the adoption of net zero ready building codes by 2030. The framework also identifies retrofitting existing buildings to increased efficiency standards. This is an important action required to meet national climate goals. Energy labeling provided by certified energy advisors through Natural Resource Canada's EnerGuide labeling program will be one of the fundamental tools in meeting these energy goals. Last week, I took a look at the federal election party platforms to see what their how their plans lined up with the framework toward net zero. Many of them did include plans to move the building industry forward to net zero, but at different timelines using various methods such as code changes, funding for existing home retrofits, funding for renewables, and more. And as you are all well aware, we will see the Liberals move forward with their plans, which includes things like there's a $40,000 interest-free loan program coming down the pipes, as well as looking at labeling for home resales, which will target the existing housing market. Passive House, as you all are well aware, is one of the highest standards for building efficiency. However, my day-to-day work usually involves assisting homeowners and home builders in meeting the basic requirements needed in order to comply with either building codes or energy targets for various programs. A recent report from Efficiency Canada states that there's a tension between minimum standard building code and the implicit goal within the Pan-Canadian framework to promote market transformation towards highly efficient and low carbon buildings. I feel this effect every day for most projects. BC's STEP code is a good solution to introducing the industry to various strategies in achieving higher levels of efficiency. This will help transition toward higher performance homes for new construction and bridge the gap toward net zero ready within 10 years. Hopefully the application of STEP code will be implemented into future building codes across Canada. So I've always been passionate about sustainability, self-sufficiency, and holistic practical solutions to environmental problems. When we were looking at alternative home designs as we planned to build our own home, we considered everything from constructing an earth ship to gray water recycling. In the end, we decided to construct our home more conventionally while focusing more on the practical application of high efficiency principles in a way that can be replicated easily using locally sourced materials and expertise. There are different approaches to building very high efficient, high performance homes. The methods identified in this presentation, such as passive house and net zero energy homes, are not mutually exclusive, but do approach design and implementation differently. The term high performance home will be used to describe either approach interchangeably in order to convey the reduction in energy consumption provided by these methods. Going through the process ourselves in building a high performance home, we can see that building one is indeed feasible both logistically and economically, even for inexperienced home builders such as ourselves to be able to accomplish, but not without lessons learned, as you will see shortly. So this is our own project. It's called the Thomas House. It was constructed in 2018 and located in central Alberta. It was built using the principles of passive house. It was topped with solar panels generating as much energy as it consumes, sometimes more energy than it consumes, making it central Alberta's first passive solar net zero energy home. Although it was designed and built using passive house theory, it did not meet some of the stringent pH requirements. It, however, still can be considered a damn near passive house and is a great example of a high performance home. The reduction in energy consumption is achieved through thoughtful design, insulation, high performance windows, increased air tightness, and the elimination of thermal bridges. The home was built with a double stud wood frame with 1 foot thick walls. The windows and doors are passive house certified, extremely well insulated, and have been designed to let in as much solar light as possible, solar energy as well as possible on the south side. The building envelope is also breathable. We used a smart air vapor barrier to assist moisture moving through the walls more effectively in order to reduce moisture buildup and prevent mold and long-term structural damage. We insulated the attic, slab, and walls 2 times what would normally be installed. The house is very airtight and was tested using a blower door system to ensure that all leaks were identified and fixed before we drywalled. We heat it with electric wall heaters and a wood stove when necessary. We installed high efficiency HRV, heat pump, hot water system, and a drain water heat recovery system. There are 3 solar systems on the property, 1 on the roof, 1 on the ground, and 1 that powers our water well. The house is served by a hybrid solar system, which is backup battery power or backup battery pack in order to protect the home from outages. Some of the additional features of the property related to sustainability include a large garden, xeriscaping, fruit forest, chickens, and rainwater harvesting. Unfortunately, last night we've lost 3 chickens due to coyotes. By conducting site development with conservation in mind, less trees were cut, less land was disturbed than a conventional build may have incurred. We use existing ecosystem services located near the site, such as natural runoff pathways, so that we can manage excess water by absorbing it. Site selection was also important in incorporating as much south-facing sunshine as possible for solar PV and passive solar heat gains. We had 3 main objectives when planning our home. The first was energy security and self-sufficiency. The second was cost savings and guaranteed utility prices. We knew that part of this process was to build in building a very low energy house, while offsetting consumption with on-site renewables would result in lower greenhouse gas emissions. This tied into our plan to live sustainably, not only in the built environment, but in our day-to-day life. Lastly, we also wanted to take advantage of the other added benefits of building a high-performance home, which I'll get into later. These other building benefits weren't necessarily realized, there were other benefits realized that weren't initially thought of, which such as increased health, comfort, durability, and future-proofing, which we now know we're realizing. To be self-sufficient and energy secure was one of our top priorities. This was important as we wanted to ensure we were less reliant on the electrical system if required. Multiple day power outages have occurred in our area, and severe weather is predicted to increase due to climate change. And in fact, we had a tree come down our house this summer. No damage, no major damage. Panels were intact. In order to withstand the effects of having a hybrid solar PV system that was both grid tied and battery-based backup was important to us. Electrical design of the home included allocating certain mechanical, lighting, and plumbing features to either the grid tied or the off-grid systems. If grid electricity were to be inaccessible during low light times, the backup solar system and batteries would engage, and appliances such as heaters, HRV, stove, hot water tank, and select lights would still work. In fact, sometimes we don't even realize the power is out until we go to use our toaster or a microwave. We installed the wood stove for both ambiance, but also because we wanted another source of heat just in case, as we have kind of a prepper mindset. Lastly, having solar energy guarantees our price of electricity, as I mentioned, over a long period of time, as electricity prices continue to rise. Another reason we wanted to design our house was cost savings, both in yearly utility costs, as well as considering the long-term payback period. I'll be honest, I didn't really know how things would end up over time, as it's difficult to estimate true energy consumption and generation of a home due to changing climatic conditions, occupant behavior, utility credit changes, energy cost changes, and other variables. However, after analyzing our costs, credits, upfront premiums associated with building a high-performance house, I know we made the right decision. There were additional costs of the project compared to a conventional build that were incurred in order to meet the higher performance level. This includes more insulation, higher performance mechanical systems and appliances, additional consulting and testing fees, additional and higher performance materials such as more lumber due to the double stud wall, tapes, adhesives, etc. And lastly, the solar itself, not including the off-grid portion, so the extra panels and the batteries associated to the off-grid system. Costs associated to the batteries and off-grid solar, as well as rural development costs, were accounted for in my analysis. I also adjusted for economy of scale advantages that a builder would benefit from that we could not because we were homeowner builders. In the summer, the solar generates way more electricity than we consume, and we receive credits toward our accounts. In the winter, we use more energy than we generate, and those credits go towards energy costs. We utilize a specific solar club pricing through our energy provider, which allows us to switch between generation and consumption months in order to maximize our credits. For example, I think it's the end of October, we switch back to our wintertime price. This summer, we purchased and sold our electricity at almost 26 cents per kilowatt hour, while in the winter, we purchased and sold our cents at 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. When we first built our home, our solar credit price was 18 cents. So it's gone up by almost 8 cents in almost 3 years, which has really impacted our estimated payback period, so long as these prices hold. I analyzed 2019's energy data for both solar production and consumption, as well as costs and credits incurred through our utility company. 2019 was actually a poor year for generation in comparison to the year before and the year after. When I did the data analysis for 2020, I used 2019's production numbers to be conservative and applied 2020's price on solar at 21 cents per kilowatt hour. The results showed that the average cost of electricity was $97 per month, with the average credit at $141 per month. This difference of $44 was applied towards the distribution and transmission costs associated with the electricity delivery to our house, which on average is $144 a month due to being in a rural area. This means that we pay $100 a month for heat and power with all fees incorporated. Energy modeling it estimated an average of $264 for both heat and power for this home if it was built conventionally to minimum code standards, which includes all fees associated to natural gas and electricity, assuming we'd be heating with natural gas. This amounts to $2.60 a day for both heat and electricity, accounting for all fees, energy costs, and generation credits. If the home was constructed to the same energy standard but did not have solar and used instead natural gas for heat, it it would cost $6.60 a day. If built to a passive house standard, although more efficient, it would be $7 a day due to higher electricity costs. If it were to be built to conventional standards using natural gas for heat and electricity for all other energy needs, it would cost $8.70 a day. Because electricity is more expensive than natural gas, low energy electric homes should still incorporate solar energy to become economic, as shown in the passive house model. Over time, this project will pay for itself in approximately 20 years, based on the 2020 numbers I had mentioned before, compared to the same house but built to a minimum energy code standard. The payback for this project accounted for all fees and energy costs associated to each model's energy sources, as well as the grants received during the construction process for solar energy. There are currently grants for solar on existing homes through the federal Greener Homes program, by the way. 20 years for us is, I think, pretty reasonable. As they like to say, there's no payback period for a granite countertop. Now, this is also a snapshot in time as energy prices increase, if solar credits increase, hopefully, and potentially if the energy system transforms to encourage behavior changes to reduce consumption, the payback period may become even shorter. Since this analysis was conducted, the credit price for solar has since increased by 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which will reduce our payback.
Yeah, and yeah, so I guess while she's reconnecting, yeah, so she does look like she's meeting the PHI low energy building certification, which is kind of what most people are starting to find that in our cold climate is kind of the most cost effective anyways, which is actually less than the 30 kilowatt hours per meter squared, and she was down at 24. So yeah, so she's right in there on all the performance metrics. And yeah, hopefully she comes back in a few minutes.
Yeah, interesting to see what happens with electricity costs. That seems to be a big hindrance for a lot of things, even something small. Like eventually, once my Mazda dies, I think I'm going to buy a Prius. Just seems to make sense. Yeah, I mean, $1,000 to it, or 1,000 clicks to a tank of gas seems reasonable, especially if you use it for work. So, yeah.
Yeah, and less maintenance. I was going to mention something. Yeah, she mentions it's fixed utility bills, and my wife's the data person, but I've been noticing that the fixed electrical connection fees seem to be creeping upwards. The natural gas ones have been around in Calgary, have been around $400. There's $650 in Edmonton. They seem to be holding a little more steady, but electrical ones seem to be creeping up ever so often to what used to be about $180, and I think they're up maybe around $200 or $300 now. So it does make the payback a little harder, but it's definitely still worthwhile. Then the other side of that is with the solar credits coming from the solar club for selling your PV up to 26 cents this year, as you mentioned. It definitely decreases the payback. So both things seem to be going up as we kind of electrify the grid. We just have to kind of watch that when we electrify, we try not to increase the peak demand that our house requires. Like we stay at that 100 amp service. We don't go up to a 200 amp service to help maintain that.
I'll just restart.
Yeah, we got to most of it. So, but yeah, you can restart at the payback side and then carry on.
Yeah, so over time, this project will pay for itself in approximately 20 years compared to the same house, but built to minimum energy code standards. The payback for this project accounted for all fees and energy costs associated to each model's energy sources, as well as grants received during the construction process for solar energy. There are currently grants for solar on existing homes through the federal Greener Homes program, by the way, and 20 years for us is pretty reasonable. As they like to say, there's no payback period on granite countertops. Now, this is also a snapshot in time as energy prices increase, if solar credits increase, or the energy system transforms to encourage behavior changes to reduce consumption. The payback period may become even shorter. Since this analysis was conducted, the credit price for solar has increased 4.5 cents per kilowatt hours, which reduces our payback period even further. I want to also mention that there will be another way to fund the additional costs associated to improving the efficiency of homes in the near future. Eventually, municipalities around Alberta will also be participating in the Clean Energy Improvement Program that Edmonton is currently piloting. And other municipalities like Rocky Mountain House are rolling out. This program will basically allow homeowners to improve the performance of their home or add solar energy through competitive financing option that is paid back with the regular property taxes. The investment is often tied to the house rather than the investment is then tied to the house rather than the homeowner. Another goal for this project was sustainability, of course. We wanted to reduce our environmental footprints as much as possible. By producing more than we consume for energy on certain years, this also reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. This house is estimated to produce 16 tons of CO2 annually without solar. However, since it produces as much or more energy than it consumes, the home will mitigate these greenhouse gases and only produce an estimated 0.2 tons per year. The solar energy installed will save the equivalent of 3.5 passenger cars taken off the road for 1 year, or under 18,000 pounds of coal burn. If this house were to be built to minimum code standard, it would generate about 35 tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year, equaling about 7.5 passenger cars, or 37,000 pounds of coal burn. Over the course of 40 years, we'll take off about 300 cars off the road. As many of you are already aware, there are many benefits of building high-performance home over and above the previous reasons mentioned. Although I appreciate that our motivations to build this type of house may not necessarily reflect the average consumer currently, more and more of these benefits will become expectations rather than options. These expectations will be driven through technology changes, higher consumer education, a wider range of features marketed by builders, and code adoption. So no project is complete without a reflection on what could have been, and this one is no exception. After we have lived in the home for over 3 years, the lived experience is truly a testament of the benefits and results of a high-performance home. Although this project did miss its goal of achieving Passive House standard, on one hand, the results show that economically meeting Passive House could have added further savings on utility costs. By meeting the airtightness requirement alone, we would have saved, it's not much, but $40 a year in heating costs. We could have taken other efficiency measures in order to meet the criteria to further increase those savings. However, some of those options would have increased the upfront cost as well. The home achieved all the other goals identified in the design process, as well as additional benefits realized later on. During the shoulder months in the fall, like right now, and the spring where sunshine is plentiful, the temperature is not extreme, and our heat is hardly ever turned on in the house as it uses so little of it. The solar gains are also effectively realized during the day. I don't expect we'll actually be turning on any of our heat until maybe mid to late October, depending on how the weather holds, even at night, because the home retains so much heat. Now, there's often not a lot of opportunity for theory to merge with practice, with designers and energy analysts having the opportunity to project manage and physically be a part of the construction process. My partner and I, we did a lot of the physical labor ourselves, such as the site prep, insulating, some of the framing, the air barrier system, garage builds, pretty much everything except for the electrical, plumbing, and framing. But unfortunately, as inexperienced home builders, there was some oversights that would most likely have been caught by a more experienced home builder. One example is that the additional insulation we had planned to include in the slab did not fit, so we had to reduce the depth a bit. Another example is that some of the plumbing and chimney protrusions on the south side could have been planned for more carefully to the other roof orientations in order to ensure that our solar fit on the south slope, but instead we have some of our solar panels on the west slope as well. Another area of improvement was with regards to the air barrier system installation. The final air change rate numbers were actually pretty exceptional for first-time home builders. However, there were definitely areas where connections could have been planned out more thoughtfully to limit leakage. Clear and concise communication between ourselves as project managers and the sub-trades that prioritized a continuous air barrier could have been improved. Although the home's mechanical systems are generally simple, it does require more effort in order to manage a house than other high-performance homes would. Rooms are independently heated, and a central heating system would have been more convenient, such as a heat pump. Heat pumps do come with an added expense, and in this case, the extra work is worth the price difference. And by running a wood stove, heating loads are also lessened, but of course with much more work. Incorporating higher level of expertise into the design process initially would have assisted us in achieving Passive House standard at a lower cost. It's true when they say that when you invest in a better design up front, you will save later on. We started working with a certified Passive House consultant later on in the design process and design and construction process, but we should have definitely started with that designer from the get-go. The previous point is especially important when considering renewable energy. The least expensive form of energy is energy conservation. By maximizing the energy savings of this project, our solar system could have been reduced even further. The balance between conservation and production should be weighted more heavily on the conservation side for two reasons. It reduces the cost associated to larger PV systems and because roof space is limited. A challenge with high performance homes is the risk of overheating due to the fact that they require very little energy input in order to raise internal temperatures significantly. This can become uncomfortable, which we did see in the first year as the home did get excessively hot, mostly in the afternoon in the summers when the sun was on the south and west side. Passive ventilation techniques were applied as much as possible, including opening windows for cross breezes, opening a downstairs window and an upstairs window, which creates a natural ventilation due to pressure differences. That's called stack effect. Utilizing the cool night air in Alberta is also an excellent form of free cooling. However, further analysis could have been conducted in order to get a better idea of cooling needs, which I know now and we conduct on current projects. A simple design solution is to adjust the overhang length on the south side as to not hinder wintertime solar gains, as you can see in this image, but block summer solar penetration. Alternatively, a cooling system could have been installed via heat pump at a higher cost, unfortunately, and energy penalty. We decided to install removable sunshades on the south side deck, as you saw in some of the previous images, which provide shaded area on the patio in the summer, while ensuring that the precious wintertime sun is still accessed by the south glazing. This simple, low-tech and low-cost solution provided the answer to this problem, but it could have definitely been planned for initially. So as you can see in the energy consumption results of the Thomas house, this is comparative. This house was meeting Passive House standard as well as the Canadian Home Builder Association's net zero program requirements, and if this house was built to minimum code standard. To compare with the above program energy standards, the Thomas house performs 71% better than new homes constructed today, less than the 75% improvement to Passive House. It does perform much better than the minimum net zero standard with a 48% savings in annual space heating loads, which is a 15% improvement over the program requirements. And the building envelope alone has an 80% improvement over a co-constructed house. We anticipate this project to be certified through CHBA next year as net zero. Its EnerGuide rating is 0, and it means that that consumes 0 gigajoules in energy over the course of the year because of the production of the solar system. Lastly, the total energy consumption was compared to as if this house was meeting minimum energy code requirements. Without the added solar energy, it would still be a low energy, high performance home at 46 gigajoules per year. The conventional home would consume about 111 gigajoules per year for heat and power. And this project was our personal attempt to do better in this world. It opened up the opportunity for us to work with the community in better understanding home energy and renewables, as well as helping our own clients in meeting their own energy goals. And that's the end of my coffee talk. Just wanted to thank you guys for listening. We have more information for you via our socials if you want to touch base with us at any time. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. No, that was excellent. And yeah, I think you mentioned it while you were reconnecting. There is now the Passive House Low Energy Building Standard, which is under 30 kilowatt hours per meter squared. So you're right in there actually for that standard. And we're finding that standard's more cost effective, same as you found in our cold climate. Getting to that 15, we don't get the mechanical savings. So getting all the way to 15 for a single family house often doesn't make sense. But no, lots of similar learning from my house, living in my house for the 5-6 years that I'm putting in a heat pump this winter, just mainly for the cooling, because smoky days and it doesn't cool off as much in the evening anymore. So yeah, you need to definitely watch our overheating, because unfortunately the climate is not cooling. It's heating up and continuing to heat up. So anyone else? Yeah, anyone else have any other questions for Chelsah?
It was a very neat, concise presentation. So you covered all the bases really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was an excellent kind of refresher for some of the things we've talked about in previous coffee talks, but after taking the summer off, you all might have forgotten. So it's excellent. Excellent reminder. Kind of what I always say is you start with a passive house and add on whatever green goals you have. So you guys did an excellent job of highlighting the embodied carbon, because that is a huge issue we need to be worrying about, and Passive House officially doesn't worry about it. So adding that on to your goals, I'd like to see the permaculture bits and the chickens and the food forests and stuff like that. And yeah, I guess with that, maybe not quite to the coyotes, but yeah, if nothing's eating your garden, you're not part of the ecosystem. So don't feel too bad.
Exactly.
I guess you prefer not to have coyotes eat your chickens, but yeah, you have to give some surplus back to the environment.
Well, those ones didn't have names yet, so. Well, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Oh, hey,
Wait, can I
Shay.
ask a quick question? Hi, sorry. I'm trying to convince my toddler to just be quiet just for a second and ask a question. Working. I was curious, you said you have a solar system for your well as well, like solar energy for your well. Could you elaborate on that? And like, is that just like you can sub it out in the winter for the regular, or how does that work?
Yeah, so because we are pretty far away from where our electricity comes in onto the property, we had to drill 3 wells and even to get to our water, and our well ended up being pretty far away from where the electrical lines were going to be dug in. So and in conjunction with my master's, I actually had a grant associated to getting the water well for a project associated to that. So we have a Grenfoss water pump, and it's hooked into, I think about 3,000 kilowatts of power to power it. And it's just it's really meant for off-grid, say like watering cows or rural applications. And yeah, it's once it's hooked up, you don't need to worry about it at all. We have a 1,200 gallon cistern, I think, below. So that kind of acts as a battery as well. So during the day, on the sunny days, the cistern fills up with water, and then we just use our water as needed. It's just gravity fed down to the house. It's a pretty simple system. I think it costs about $5,000 or so to set up. We have run into one time where we didn't have enough. If we emptied the cistern, we had to wait for it to refill, and it resulted in an airlock in the line, which we had to get a pump and suck it out. Wasn't the end of the world, but it was another hard learning lesson. It's just living out in the country, that sort of thing. And then we have another water container in the mechanical room as well. I don't know what it's called, but just so that we have potable water right on site as well, just to fill up. But pretty simple system, and the Grenfoss pumps are really good quality, and they have a great warranty.
Did you ever look at putting rainwater collection out there?
We did, but at the time, we do have rainwater for the chickens and some of the garden, but not for the house itself. At the time, because I was learning so much with regard to high performance homes and everything else, that was kind of like lower on the totem pole priority. I would like to include it a little bit more, maybe in future projects, so I can become a little bit more familiar with it. But I think because we didn't have any local consultants, everybody I talked to, all the plumbers and everybody, they just were not interested in any of these experimental alternatives. So we had to pick and choose, you know, what we wanted to put our effort into with experimentation. And I know that now, like with this group, Passive House Solar for us isn't experimental, but there's still a lot of catch up for our contractors and the general public for even these basic ideas. So to get into, you know, some of these other ones, it would have been a big challenge. We even looked at green roof systems. That was another option, but again, local contractors and other consultants we work with weren't as familiar. So had to kibosh that one, maybe in our greenhouse. So
you know what? Having been bit in the ass with badly designed green roofs, you probably saved yourself more trouble than you got out of it. So that's still quite the learning curve to deal with that, even commercially. Exactly,
yeah. And my partner's, he used to work in commercial flat roofing, and so he was really on board to learn about that and, you know, like take on that project. But yeah, he also has worked on, you know, like Red Deer has a green roof over our bus station that is now a brown roof. So it's unfortunately it isn't the best solution. I guess it just depends on the application.
It's not a perfected science yet, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was an excellent presentation, Chelsah. What a great speaker you are.
Thanks, Kim.
Sorry, if there's still time, can I ask about where you said you got funding from? For your
yeah,
project?
so there is, at the moment of our build, there was multiple grant programs available for solar. There was a home energy plan through the government of Alberta, which has since been kiboshed, unless another election comes up and you can get a government that is more inclined to put in Energy Efficiency Alberta programming again. But there's also the Greener Homes program, like I said before, for existing homes, which is $5,000 towards a solar system. And then we had funding specifically through, now I can't remember what it is. It was, it's an agricultural based program, but at this moment, I don't think it's running. But there is specific requirements, as in you have to be an operational farm, which our quarter is attached to. But if you're interested, I can definitely dig into it a little bit more.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay, well, again, thank you very much, Chelsea, for that. If there's no other questions, we got a few more minutes. If not, we will wrap it up. And next month in October, in October, we will have Raphael Spinner. He'll be talking to us about some of his learnings from performing an energy efficiency retrofit to a single family home in Canmore. So lots of interesting things coming up. And yeah, if anyone has any suggestions for future ones, our kind of November and December coffee talks, we have not picked our speakers yet. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to send them in. And if not, I will thank everyone for coming today.
Yes, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right,
Thank
have
you.
a good day.